I maxed out every vocation in Dragon's Dogma 2 to decide once and for all what is the strongest class in the game. And in this video, we're gonna rank all the vocations, starting from the worst and moving to the most fun and most powerful. So buckle up, grab some iced coffee, and let's dive into the list. Starting off with by far the worst class in the game, Trickster. Where do I even start with this? Trickster is one of the most interesting and unique classes I've seen in an RPG. Unfortunately, it's extremely underpowered and not very fun to play. You see, Tricksters can't actually deal direct damage to the enemies. I mean, technically you can smack enemies with your sensor, but it'll be 2025 by the time you actually take down a boss with this method. The pre-launch showcase made a big deal about the illusory floor that you could trick enemies into falling off of cliffs and the like. But this is highly situational in the actual game. If you're fighting in a dungeon or just a regular ass open plane with no steep drop-offs, which makes up like 80% of the combat encounters in this game, then the fickle floor ability is completely useless. The Trickster master ability kinda sucks too. It summons a gigantic dragon that scares off mobs of enemies, robbing you of the experience you would gain if you just killed them instead. So you will rely heavily on your pawns to kill enemies. Most encounters play out like this. You put out your simulacrum, spread smoke to aggro the enemies, buff your pawns, which also drains their HP by the way, and then just wait. It's very, very boring. The combat is the best part in Dragon's Dogma 2, but with Trickster, you are just a passive participant in the action. The concept of Trickster was kinda cool, and would have worked a lot better in a combat system that allowed you to swap and directly control different party members. Something like Dragon Age, for instance. But as it stands, Trickster is an underpowered and unfun way to play the game. Next up, we have Mage. Now here's the deal, man. Mage is one of the best support classes in the game. You have access to healing without wasting an ability slot or consumable items. You can remove any debuff, and you can massively buff movement speed. Unfortunately, it's just not that fun to play a Mage as your main character. But at least you can deal direct damage with a handful of spells, so it's better than Trickster. But if you really want to deal magical damage, then you're going to need to play as a Sorcerer. I pretty much always have a Mage in my party, and they're extremely valuable in Dragon's Dogma 2, but the hours I spent level grinding Mage on my main were some of the most boring times I experienced in this game. I think I'd rather file my taxes than level grind Mage again. Looking to level up your career, then today's sponsor may be just the thing you need to step into a high-paying job. Boot.dev is the best platform for learning back-end web development. The good folks at Boot.dev believe the smartest way to learn to code is to conquer boredom, so they've taken an approach of game design to help make their back-end development lessons fun and rewarding. As you complete coding assignments, you will earn XP, achievements, and complete quests on your journey to become a max-level back-end developer. But these ain't no simple fetch quests like some games out there. With Boot.dev, you'll be diving right into the writing process because the best way to learn software development is to start coding and shipping projects. So you'll be writing tons of code in Python and Go, and if you ever feel stuck, you're not alone because there is an incredibly active Discord community for Boot.dev where you can ask questions and talk with other students. In today's technology-driven economy, programmers have amazing earning potential. In fact, the median salary in the US for back-end developers last year was over $100,000. Plus, programmers often have the flexibility to work from home. So if you're looking to make a career change or just learn a new set of skills, then now is a great time to get started with Boot.dev. It's free to create an account and demo the courses. Click the link in the description and use my code to get 25% off your first payment for Boot.dev. That's 25% off your first month or your first year, depending on the subscription you choose. Big shout out to Boot.dev for sponsoring this video. Which brings me to the next boring class that I hated playing, Archer. Now here's the thing. Archers can sport some really high damage numbers, but in a game with a lot of overpowered classes, Archer just doesn't stack up. Their master ability requires you to deplete your entire stamina bar in exchange for kind of middling damage. Plus, you need to carry around a bunch of different consumable arrow types in order to use like half of the abilities. So no, you can't just equip exploding arrows, you have to actually put exploding arrows into an ability slot as well. Oh, and another thing, I don't like how you need to trigger an additional action to detonate exploding arrows. So you either need to hit them again with another shot, wait for a pawn to hit them, or wait like 10 to 15 seconds for them to detonate on their own. Why can't these just explode on impact? The main advantage to Archer is you can safely attack from range while your pawns distract the enemies. Plus, they are better suited for dealing with flying enemies like harpies. But in a game that has Magick Archer, I don't know why you would main the basic bitch off-brand variant. Next up, we have Fighter. This is actually a really great vocation. It's basically a faster version of Warrior that trades off lower damage in exchange for speed and defensive capabilities. You can block and parry, climb monsters effectively, and deal ridiculous damage with the right gear. Plus, the master ability is really fun to use. It's kind of a faster, one-handed version of Arc of Might. So don't get me wrong, Fighter is amazing, it just feels a little basic and less fun to use when compared to classes like Mystic Spearhand and Warrior. Coming in at number 6, we have Warfarer, one of the brand new classes introduced in Dragon's Dogma 2. Warfarer is a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Warfarers are the only vocation in the game that can wield multiple weapons simultaneously and wear any armor in the game. It sounds totally broken, right? I mean, you could literally make a Sorcerer Warfarer that wears heavy armor while using daggers and swords as offhand weapons. But there are some downsides. For starters, you don't have access to any master abilities as a Warfarer, so some of the most powerful abilities are just off the table when you use this class. Second of all, if you want to use more than one weapon, which is the main reason to choose Warfarer, then you only have 3 abilities since the weapon swap option takes up an ability slot. That being said, being able to create your own hybrid class with any weapons, armors, and almost any ability is pretty damn cool. And this class is extremely valuable for exploration in particular. I like to have a staff as one of my offhand weapons. I didn't even equip any abilities for the staff, but just having it gave me the ability to levitate in the open world, which was huge when I was looking for Seeker's tokens. But while Warfarer is certainly the most versatile class in the game, you're always going to be better off specializing if you want to maximize your power and damage output. So for me, Warfarer lands near the middle of the pack. Next up, we have Magick Archer. This is actually one of the most broken and overpowered vocations in Dragon's Dogma 2, given the right circumstances. Specifically, the Ricochet Hunter ability is ridiculous. It shoots off an AK-47 clip of magical arrows that bounce off any available surface, dealing damage the whole time. So if you blast this off inside a cave or dungeon, it's basically a guaranteed one-shot kill. Only problem is, it's completely useless outdoors. You can get some ricochets off walls and that sort of thing, but if it's all open space, then your damage falls off by like 99% with this ability. However, Magick Archers have another extremely overpowered ability called Martyr Bolt, which is the master ability. In exchange for some of your HP, Magick Archer can unleash an insanely high damage volley of holy arrows that can one-shot even some of the tankiest bosses. Sure, it will tank your HP bar and loss gauge in the process, but the boss will be dead, so who cares? The only real drawbacks for Magick Archer are that the other basic abilities don't do anywhere near as much damage. So pound for pound, vocations like Sorcerer, Warrior, and Thief will just out DPS the Magick Archer, unless the Magick Archer's using its ult, or if you're in a cave. Also, Magick Archer has basically no defensive or evasive maneuvers, so if enemies get the drop on you, you're going to get stun-locked into oblivion and have a very bad time. Finally, Magick Archers burn through a ton of stamina, so you'll need a lot of consumables if you want to ability spam. The main reason I'm not ranking Magick Archer higher on the list is, personally, I think it's a bit boring to play. Outside of the high notes of popping off with Ricochet Hunter or Martyr Bolt, the day-to-day gameplay of Magick Archer is not nearly as fun as, let's say, Warrior. Which brings me to one of the most fun classes in the game, Mystic Spearhand. When Dragon's Dogma 2 initially released, I could not wait to unlock this class. Mystic Spearhands are incredibly fast, flashy, and most of all, just a lot of goddamn fun to play. You can close distance quickly, do awesome jump attacks, toss enemies around like ragdolls, or Tiger Woods driver swing them over the horizon, which has led to some of the funniest moments I've seen in this game.
Here, you little shit.
But the most overpowered part of the Mystic Spearhand kit is actually the magic shield. This thing greatly reduces incoming damage and, more importantly, stun lock. Because one of the Achilles heels of this class is that you'll get CC'd more than a mosh pit at a Lamb of God concert. On top of this, the shield basically has 100% uptime because the stamina cost of casting it is negligible, so you can just reapply the shield whenever it drops off. Oh, and did I mention the shield will also get applied to pawns if they're in close proximity to you? This thing is just broken, dude. But while the Mystic Spearhand is really fun, there are a handful of classes that can deal much more damage, which brings me to Warrior. God damn, bro. Warriors are by far the most Giga-Chad coded class in Dragon's Dogma 2. Wielding gigantic weapons with super long charge-up times is a recipe for super high damage and super high fun. Plus, warriors can deal with any type of enemy. Run up against a mob of wolves or goblins, hit them with a sweeping arc. Harpies annoying your ass, hit them with a skyward slash. Fighting a giant mini-boss, drop their ass and smash your sword down on their head, or hard if it's a dragon. I also love the ability where you bum rush an enemy and smash them against a wall or throw them off a cliff. You'll feel like a god on the battlefield when you play Warrior. Plus, the Arc of Might Master ability absolutely slaps. I kinda wish they didn't rename this ability because Arc of Obliteration sounds more badass, but the big damage numbers are still there in Dragon's Dogma 2. The only time Warrior isn't fun to play is if you're wearing gear with low knockdown resistance, because Warriors are completely useless if they start getting stun locked. Unlike fighters and thieves, Warriors have no evasive or defensive maneuvers. I guess you could shoulder charge and try to interrupt attacks, but if you have the right gear, you should be able to tank your way through most hits and still launch your abilities. Part of me wants to put Warrior at number 1 on the list. I think it's definitely the most fun I had, but there are 2 vocations that I think can outclass Warrior. Sorcerer takes the number 2 slot on my list. Just like Magick Archer, it's one of the most insanely broken classes in this game, but only if you unlock both of the master abilities. Maelstrom summons a giant tornado that absolutely shreds boss HP bars. And since the spell locks onto your target, you basically cannot miss with it. Maelstrom deletes smaller mobs instantly and will totally destroy all manner of dragons, drakes, chimeras, and more. The other master ability summons a rain of meteors that will obliterate everything in its path. It's great for clearing mobs and deleting mini-bosses. The only downside is sometimes the spread is a little bit too big and your meteors will miss their mark. Once you've unlocked these abilities, the rest of the Sorcerer kit is basically irrelevant. I will use High Levin for clearing smaller enemies since it's one of the fastest ones to cast, and that is the real downside of this class. It takes absolutely forever to cast these spells, which is the trade-off for their high damage. There are some situations where you'll get mobbed by enemies and just not have enough time to cast your spells. So it's important to have warriors, thieves, or fighters in your party to tank and aggro the enemies. But when the going gets tough, you can always just levitate out of there, which is one of the best evasive maneuvers in the game. Also, it's extremely useful for exploration. I love DPS mages, so for me, Sorcerer is one of the most fun classes in this game. But it definitely makes the game a bit too easy at times, so I could see how some people might get bored with it. But I, for one, never tire of casting gigantic tornadoes. But at the end of the day, even I have to admit that there is one vocation that is stronger than Sorcerer, and that is the Thief class. Thieves have all of the best features of Dragon's Dogma's combat system with none of the downsides. They are super fast, deal insane damage, they can parry and evade, even to the point of having an automatic dodge built into their master ability. Plus, you have access to this class right at the start of the game, so you won't have to do some bullshit side quest to unlock it. I already made a full build guide walking through the intricacies of the Thief kit, so just to quickly recap some of their best abilities, Skull Splitter is the main damage dealing ability for Thieves, and you unlock it very early. You basically do a spin to win front flip that deals damage all the way. You can just shred through boss HP bars with this attack, and for basic enemies it's a one-shot. Powder Blast is also really good. You can place a sticky grenade into a mob of enemies, or stick it to a boss and then detonate it at will. And when you parry enemies, it's a one-hit kill whenever you use the Masterful Kill ability. But the most broken part of the Thief kit is the Formless Feint Master ability, aka Sicko Mode. It buffs your movement speed, and when you activate it, you will automatically dodge all incoming attacks with no input from the player. And this ability barely drains your stamina when it's active. It's just totally broken. Yes, there are other classes that can post higher damage hits than Thief, but given the speed of your attacks, Thieves can pump out a higher DPS than Sorcerers and Warriors. Plus, it's really fun. So there you have it. I maxed out every vocation in Dragon's Dogma 2, stress tested them all, and ranked them in this video. What classes do you really enjoy playing in Dragon's Dogma 2? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more RPG videos. Big shout out to all the channel members for supporting my content. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.